Hello.
Yeah, that's your name.
Squirrels got me.
Big Jim.
Yeah.
Really cold and fun.
Cold and fun.
Cold and fun.
That's good that you think that of it, because that's what deer hunting typically is cold and fun.
Yesterday morning, I'm glassing up on the pass, and I see these deer moving. And I'm like, ooh, there's some deer moving. All of a sudden, I just see this person just head down, just hauling ass, wearing shorts and a T-shirt with a pack on. And I'm like, is that Tard? My dad always talks about floating through the woods like the autumn breeze.
So Robert's
when you're
the
275 pounds, I don't know how you do that, but
the Freightliner. It's just like a creeper. You're just kind of up in the corner watching what's going on down there.
Yeah.
You know.
He's like,
he's up there slapping, pissing all over everything.
Is it warm yet?
How did you know the name of the actor?
That's right. I know.
Why did you say his name?
Hervé Villechaize.
You know what pert near means.
If you know what pert near means and you live in America, you're a redneck too.
Welcome to the Log Talk Podcast, brought to you by Pert Near Outdoors. Hey everybody, welcome to episode 36 of the Log Talk Podcast with Pert Near Outdoors. This is your host Billy, and thanks again for joining us. This week we will be having a conversation with Nate Kennedy. Nate is a fellow New Yorker, lives in central New York, kind of born and raised in that area, raised up in the St. Lawrence area along the river, and has now moved down to the Syracuse area for his career and what he does for work. We spent quite a bit of time talking about that, what he does for a living, what his passions are, and it's a pretty lighthearted, fun conversation. Him and I have hit it off pretty good and have a lot. I guess we just kind of easily can conversate. So we just have some good discussion, talk about all different kinds of things. Didn't really have a roadmap for this podcast. Just wanted to get together with him, and ultimately, the main thing I wanted to talk about was what he does for a living, and that is working for 4-H for Cornell Cooperative Extension. So a lot I didn't know about what 4-H does, so Nate kind of fills us in, and as well as a lot of other stuff that we get to talking about that kind of surrounds that and conservation as a whole. So great conversation there with Nate, so I think you will enjoy that one. So stay tuned. We'll start that in just a minute. But first, just kind of run through a few things that have happened over the last week or some stuff that's going on. So as probably just about everybody who is on social media is aware, around New York that pays attention to the outdoors world, you know that New York State has now made their hunter's education program. I like to call it hunter safety course, but they call it the hunter education program. They've made that completely available online right now, which it opened up on the 15th of April and is going to run through the 30th of June. And after that point, they're going to make a determination as to whether they continue to offer it online or if they pull that back and go back to the in-person format only. So be very interesting to see how that continues to progress. And if you are listening to this episode and you're not listening to the episode before this, I kind of put out a quick bonus 30-minute conversation that I had with Tony Wilkinson of New York State DEC. He is the director for Fish and Wildlife. I was honored to get him on the podcast so him and I could have a discussion. I really wanted to learn a little more about the program. It's fairly straightforward, I guess. It's an online class. Just about everybody's taken that, an online class for something, but I kind of wanted to know a little more behind it as far as the DEC's decision to make that change. And so a lot of good insight from Tony, and I think a lot of thought-provoking stuff as we move forward here. As you don't really think about this sort of stuff being affected. We all know that life will change after this quarantine is over, but little things like this, every little facet of life is affected, and little things like hunter's education program could be changed forever. For good, some people may say for good, some people may say for bad. I think it's somewhere in the middle. I think you gotta. There's a lot that's changed in our times and in our world, and time is very precious. And if you can help make education along for a program like this available to more people in a more time efficient manner that may help them get it done when it works for them, not necessarily by a an 8-hour or an in-person course, whatever that course may be. I think there's a lot of different sides to it. So I know I posted today's Sunday the 19th, so I posted some information and some clips from the podcast on a bunch of the different Facebook pages with New York State hunting and fishing types of stuff, just to kind of get the information out there to everybody, and the discussion I had with Tony, and definitely got a lot of feedback real quick, which I was excited to see. A lot of different opinions there, and I think you got some folks out there that are very concerned, and I share that concern about people that may be kind of just skimming through and passing just because they have a base general knowledge. And you're always going to have that with some kind of online course. We've all done it. You've taken a class and just kind of blown through it. And you kind of know enough to get you through and know enough to be dangerous. So I understand that side of it. I think that I'd like to give more people credit than that. You're always going to have a bad egg in the bunch, but most people are going to take it very seriously and are going to pay attention and work through each station of the course. And I've seen in some of these messages back and forth that the company that runs this online hunters education program through huntered.com, that they've already made a couple little tweaks, putting timers on each chapter, so you have to spend a certain amount of time on it, so you really can't just blow through it. So it's technology, it's things that can be changed. Nothing's ever perfect. So I think keep the feedback coming. I said it on the intro to that podcast that I put out just yesterday on the 18th. Any feedback you have, I'm going to kind of keep a log myself and watch a lot of these different chat boards and stuff on Facebook. Seems to be the place where a lot of people congregate, and just get that. They're asking for that feedback. We'll see what happens, and the take rate as far as people signing up for this has been outstanding so far, as you'll hear in that podcast. So definitely head over and check that out. And if you know anyone who's interested in taking their hunter safety, their hunter education program, I keep saying hunter safety. If you know anybody who needs to take that or has any interest in doing it, definitely encourage to take a look at that right now. Everybody has the time, one way or the other, and it's a great thing to get out there and buy a license, as that helps support conservation throughout our state, and those dollars are very important. So good stuff there. We got youth season coming up this weekend, so any youth hunters or anybody that's taking youth hunters out for turkey here in New York, good luck to you. I hope you have some good weather. Everybody's getting excited about turkey season coming up, and even if you aren't a huge turkey hunter, and I would classify myself as that I'm not a diehard turkey guy, but when you have as much time on your hands as we all do right now, you're just kind of chomping at the bit for the next big event to jump into and to stay busy. So turkey is something that is on all of our minds, and had the opportunity this past week to spend more time in the woods again, and did get to see some birds the last few days over at the farm. So we're starting to kind of see them doing their normal patterns, which is encouraging, and got some couple good longbeards on camera, and looking forward to the May 1st opener there. We had our very own Big Jim competed in the Backcountry Hunters and Anglers Strutting and Clucking Challenge, and Jimmy made it to the state finals and lost to Bob Monteleone, I believe is how you say his name. Bob definitely had a good video and a good caller himself, so it was hats off to you, Bob. Congratulations. That was a fun contest, and there was a few people that following along with us that were that did not get in on that wanted to get on something, and I'd kind of hinted that we were looking at doing some kind of a contest, and I think we're going to try to put together some kind of a turkey contest, an actual turkey killing contest, as far as biggest bird, probably have a couple different measurements and have it be some kind of a self-report deal, where you got to send us a picture with the length of the spurs, length of the beard, and maybe the length of the bird, and then that would ultimately come up with your score. So we're working to put that together right now as we speak. I'm trying to work to it would be a fundraiser is what it would be in the end of the day. We're trying to raise some money for NWTF. So I'm working with Brian Gottfried, who's the regional coordinator for them for NWTF here in Western New York. Trying to work with him to figure out the best way to to make sure that that money gets back to New York, into our region. So we're trying to figure that out quickly here so we can put this together. But one way or the other, keep your eyes peeled on our Instagram and Facebook pages, as we will be trying to get that out probably middle of this week at the latest, so that anybody who's heading out youth hunting can get involved as well. We got hats coming, baseball caps. We got I'm going to post some pictures of them as soon as I've got confirmation that the order is placed and that we kind of have a rough idea when they're coming in. But we've kind of been dragging our feet a little bit, but we've been real particular, wanted to make sure we made something kind of unique and kind of cool, that would be kind of a lifestyle type of hat where everybody would like to wear it out and about, and it's not, oh, I only wear this one when I go hunting type of deal. So we got a camo hat we'll be putting out, as well as a kind of just a regular neutral color. So keep your eyes peeled for that in the coming week, I would say, and we should have some information on that. They'll probably be 4 to 6 weeks out as they're getting produced, and maybe delayed a little bit with everything that's going on, but we're going to keep that stuff rolling and try to get some apparel and a website and things like that up and running. So a lot of stuff happening, a lot of good stuff, and taking advantage of the time that we have to kind of get some of these things up and running, Danny, Jimmy, and myself. And lastly, I'll just remind everybody to make sure to check that link that's in our bio on Facebook and Instagram. It's a Linktree link, and if you click on that, anything that we're talking about or anything we're doing as far as any fundraisers or companies that we're talking about or things that are relevant to this, keep your eyes peeled there. I personally would encourage you to keep an eye on Camo Fire. Of late, the last week or so, they've had some fantastic deals on there. I know Danny and myself were habitual visitors of camofire.com, and if you use the link that's in our bio, you will help support this podcast. And Camo Fire, I just purchased another Spy Point camera, mini link or link mini or whatever the hell they call it, micro link. I just purchased another one of those for $100, and I had it in 2 days, and I couldn't be happier with that. Things all set up and sending me pictures. So keep your eyes peeled over there. You can definitely stumble across some good deals, and I think you might be seeing some more good deals coming down the pipe with everything that's going on. Everybody wants to be moving some product. So heads up on that. And last thing, and then I will shut my mouth, we are going to do a live podcast on Facebook. I'm not sure if we're going to do it on Facebook and on YouTube, or maybe just on YouTube. We've done it on Facebook a couple times now, and it was it came out okay, but it was a little bit clunky. We had to do a bunch of different things. Recently got set up with an actual paid Zoom account, and it looks like I can actually stream straight to YouTube. So I think we might try to do that with our. We're going to do a live talk on Thursday night of this week, so it'll be the 25th. No, 23rd. So I'll be putting an event out on Facebook and be talking about it on Instagram this week that we'll be doing something again at 8 o'clock p.m. on the 23rd. And we will definitely be having it on YouTube, maybe on Facebook as well. Figured YouTube might be a little bit better because you could sit and watch it on your television or on your phone, whichever you preferred. And we're going to have some fun. We're going to have a few guys on to talk about turkey hunting strategies as we're approaching opening day, and have a couple sodas and probably have a few laughs. So it should be some good stuff. And again, appreciate everybody's support. Episode 36 coming at you. Enjoy your week. Stay healthy. Wash your hands. And just keep fading them. All things for all people is what we are here.
Exactly.
I want to see if I can get the microphone a little bit more directly in front of me. Can you hear me pretty good or no?
Yeah, perfect.
All right. I ordered one of those like professional looking like boom mic move around stands, and obviously with everything that's going on, it's like the estimated delivery date's like April 30th. I'm like, no, I don't need it that bad. I was like, I'm gonna cancel this order. Somebody else needs something maybe a little bit more important than that. So I will back my order out of the channel, sir.
Well, you're all stocked up on diapers and Cheez-Its too, so you're good to go.
100%. So I've got the Cheez-Its rocking. I was on a live. Me and my buddies and I, we've been doing a couple like trivia nights. So my brother-in-law and all of his buddies from high school, they've been. My brother-in-law's been building these like Jeopardy boards with like sports trivia and like just really random, like fun trivia of like crimes people have committed. And, like an example was, name the 3 or the 4 colleges that had not only a Super Bowl winning quarterback, but also a U.S. president. And like, so we're just going through and just yelling out college names. And one of the guys gets on and he's like one of those like people who, if you were going to do a Jeopardy game, like he's just full of useless information. And he gets on there and he gets in his first 3 guesses, he nails it. And he's naming the quarterbacks and the presidents. And
no, not me.
Yeah. And no, me neither. None of us actually. And we all knew as soon as he showed up, like it was going to it wouldn't even be fun anymore because he'd just be owning it. But
I don't sport.
No, you're
at
not
all.
not a sports guy
whatsoever. So I would have been lost. I did trivia a couple times in college, and I was like, you like get to that category, and everybody's like, yes, this is what I'm good at, and I'm like, I'm gonna check out for an hour.
It's kind of interesting because I feel like our generation, a lot of people that are into the outdoors are not into sports. I don't know. It's just kind of like an observation that might be completely that's not correct. That statement's not right because I know I've had plenty of conversations with guys who played sports in college. So, but there's a weird dynamic where I guess I'm looking at it from my perspective where I feel like everybody is like me, where they're into sports, they're into the outdoors, they're into all that stuff, but yet it's not the factor, like I can't like somebody like yourself. I don't know how you live. Like, I don't know.
I'm not competitive whatsoever. At all. I'd rather lose. I'm like, no, you win.
No, that's fine.
And in high school, I played basketball, but I loved it for the fun and the team part, but the competition aspect of it was just not me.
Yeah,
and
like, bro, why'd you just hit me, man? What the shit?
Exactly. And they begged me. I mean, begged me to play football.
Oh, I can imagine.
Life.
You're
like,
the mountain.
And we leave on Fridays. We leave to go to camp in the fall.
Yeah.
So it was like, I'm not. Like, no, you know what I mean? And I had buddies who played and they would go to camp on Saturday. And it was just like, no, I'm not missing that extra night at camp. Yeah.
That's the main reason why my brother didn't. My brother is probably a better athlete than I am. But when it came down to it, it cut into his hunting time. And he couldn't go to camp with dad if he was doing baseball and basketball and football. Like, he just couldn't do it. So that's 100% accurate. Like, prioritization.
I played hockey when I was 4 for a year, and it was like fun. And then they were like, all right, we're going to like practice like falling down now. And I was like, nah.
That doesn't seem fun.
I'm out.
So you weren't one of those kids, those 8-year-old kids that loved doing outfield drills when it was muddy out and you were diving and sliding and
I was a wimp and I was a crier. And I was one of those 8-year-olds that was like, what am I doing here? There's other people here and they're competitive. They seem like they want to be here. I'm confused.
Yeah.
My experience, I know you're a baseball player. My experience with baseball was like T-ball and then getting the ball thrown at you. Not at you to hit, but at you to hit you. And I was like, no, I'm out.
No, that's pretty funny. You're that, if you're going to a bar, you're like that dude over there, like you wouldn't want to mess with him. And you're like, no, man, I don't want any trouble.
Yep.
But have you ever had that happen where like people
sure.
try to give you shit because they see you as like the big guy in the bar?
Absolutely. Yep. All through college.
That's funny.
Yep. I had a couple times in undergrad where people in class would be sitting next to me and they'd be like, hey, I just wanted to introduce myself. I've been sitting next to you for a couple weeks now. And you just kind of scaring me a little bit. I just wanted to say hi and like clear the air. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like the nicest guy ever. It's always caught me off guard, but yeah, for sure. Big man syndrome.
That's really funny.
It's all the fruits and vegetables.
Yeah. Those are problems that little guys don't have. Little guys are trying to pick a fight and you're just trying to just stay out of everybody's way.
Yeah, that's right.
That is hilarious.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
It's awesome.
It's awesome.
Well, fun little banter there back and forth, but we'll kind of go ahead and get started, and
Cool.
don't have a ton that I want to be like super structured with this conversation, but I want to just see where it goes. And I got a few points I want to hit on of things I know you're working on and projects you're doing in your day-to-day work, as well as your, the personal side outside of work. So,
Sweet.
on the horn with me today is Nate Kennedy. We're not on the horn, we're on the video chat. So this is like the new norm now with everything that's going on. It actually, it's working pretty well, and have enjoyed jumping on the video chats with different people to do this. So Nate, thanks for jumping on the old Google Hangout today.
Of course. It's good to be back. If I may,
You may.
I just want to say I'm a little offended at the call out the other day to just let all of us Pert Near pro staffers know that we're not quite pro staffers.
Well, we're
Just
not.
kidding. I'm
No.
not actually offended.
No, you should be offended, because that was directed towards you. You think you're something, but you're really not.
I got the top fan badge on Facebook.
You
know it.
do. You do. No, it's and I'm glad you brought that up, because I just quickly hit on that, but that's something, right from the start, like, and that was something I wanted to ask you, is like, how'd you come across us? Because pretty early on, when we started our social media page and stuff, you started following along and interacting with us. Like, how did that come across your plate?
I think just through BHA. I think it was like I started getting a little more active online. I haven't been nearly as active as I would love to be in person, but I'm a keyboard warrior for BHA for sure. And I think just through the New York BHA Facebook page or the Instagram, and when you guys flared up, it was like, hey, look at this. And it's been cool to see you guys snowball since then.
Yeah, it's been a lot of
sure.
fun. And it's been fun engaging with guys like you, and just growing our community. Like, we're just having an absolute blast with this. And right off the bat, I think you were one of the first guys we had stickers made, and I think you may have been the first one who, sent the message and said, hey, yeah, I'll take some. And so, mailed you out some stickers. And, that's what it comes down to when we talk about like Pert Near Pro Staff. Like, that was one of the biggest, when we were coming up with the name, like, it was just kind of off the cuff. We liked saying Pert Near, and then it's like, oh, Pert Near Pro Staff, because we just don't take ourselves that seriously. I mean, we take what we do seriously, but, we're not in this for the money. We're not in this to, get sponsorships to do that. Like I've said on past podcasts, if the opportunity presents itself to work with companies that we believe in or that we use, 100%. But that's not our driving factor behind it. It's to engage and meet people like you and develop that community, because that's what the outdoors is to us. If it was just a solo endeavor, it's not really what we're looking for. We're, us as a group feel that, having that group feeling is what this lifestyle is all about. So
For sure. And I'm a sticker junkie. So I think that probably got me. Anybody with stickers will get me. But I couldn't agree more. And it's been cool to see, the podcast grow. I'm not commuting now. I have an hour commute usually to work. And now I'm falling so far behind. I caught up this week on some, but some channels are like putting out so much this week and last week that it's like, oh man. And I'm getting like anxious about like, I've got to catch up. I got to schedule some time to get some podcasts in. But no, it's been cool. And I'm the same way. I mean, I love like the social media fun of hunting and fishing stuff. Like I love the promotion of it. And I'm not out here trying to make a living, you know what I mean, doing that, but I love that aspect of it. So when you guys had stickers and when you're always, sharing and it's able to connect and grow across the state. I mean, you guys are a couple hours from me, Western New York. I love it. And to tie it in, you guys tie in really nicely with BHA and that, I mean, that's just been a lot of fun with the online side of it for sure.
Yeah, it has. And it's funny you mentioned the commute. Like I literally drive all day long. I go in and have meetings with my customers and I come out. So I've gone from driving 1,000 to 1,200 miles a week to literally I'm driving to the farm 5 minutes down the road and back. So I'm driving my wife absolutely nuts because I've got my Bluetooth earbuds in all day long because I want to keep up with, the Joe Rogan stuff. And like Rogan's been doing an incredible job covering, having doctors on and people that are like credible people to listen to throughout this whole coronavirus thing, but like tuning into all the different podcasts, like I'm trying to keep up with everything. So I totally agree. And like, so Monday morning I went to, I drove to Honeoye to do a little scouting hike and check out some property and look for some more sheds. And like got home and I told my wife, I'm like, you have no idea how much I enjoyed my 3-hour round trip drive just to get in my truck and drive. Like that's such a huge part of my life and I love it and I miss it.
It's definitely like while I'm working a lot of time, like we've been trying to move closer to work, and with this, I'm like, do I want to be closer to work? I think I do. I know I'm loving the fuel savings, like the fuel cost savings, but the podcast thing is like, I'm having some straight up, I did the same thing the other day. I took a long couple-hour drive just basically around the neighborhood just to do it, just to drive in the truck and listening, catching up a little bit. Cause all the podcasts I listen to, everybody's at home too. So it's like you say, they're pumping out content and I'm just trying to scramble and
to keep up with it. Cause if I don't keep
track.
up now, I'll never catch up.
Exactly. Yep. No, it's awesome.
So let's kind of get into a little bit of your background. So we already touched on the fact that you're a big giant cuddle bear. So we already know that. We don't have to talk anymore on that end of things. But what's your background with the outdoors? And I guess to preface that, I'd had you on. I'm not sure what episode or what week of the Breeding and Radio I had you on. You had shot a buck. So we kind of got a little bit of a look into your hunting background and your hunting heritage. But I guess kind of give me a little bit more rundown on kind of where your upbringing in the outdoors and why you're so passionate about everything that is that.
For sure. Like a ton of other people, I grew up in a family that's just, up the line, up the chain, hunting and fishing. I'm from Ogdensburg, which is, it's in St. Lawrence County. It's right on the river, right on the St. Lawrence River on the Canadian border, in the North Country. And I grew up in the little city of Ogdensburg, but I grew up with a summer camp, we called it, where we have like a little small camp on the river. Nice. For the summers. And we lived there in the summer. And I grew up with a hunting camp and just outside the Adirondacks. It's in the Adirondacks, but it's just outside the park. And so my upbringing was like on the river all summer, in the woods all fall, and then, in the spring and in the winter, just kind of doing little road trips with my dad. We are very much so like generalists. So I'm not like overly good at anything in the outdoors, but I try to do it all. Like we do whatever's in season all throughout the year, and that's how my grandfather is. That's how my dad grew up, him and all his brothers. And it's it's the biggest part of our family is the camp life and the community that we have together in the outdoors. I go most of the year without seeing a lot of my family. And then we spend sometimes every waking moment together all through the fall at camp. And so that's kind of where it all started for me, was just, my dad. I think you guys had an awesome podcast with your dad about, how he went a lot of hunts without probably seeing deer and shooting deer. My dad didn't do the, shut up and it be cold thing. We had fun. We went out and he took the time to really make sure that we had fun. All of my growing up was all hunting and fishing, and it's just spiraled really since then. Like I was saying before we press record, I skipped out on most sport things growing up, a lot of social things growing up, just to do more hunting and fishing in the North Country. And we still have our camp on the river. I live in Syracuse now, so I don't get to spend as much time there, but we still have our camp on the river and fish the St. Lawrence River as much as possible in the summer. And then I talked on the other episode, the Breeding and Radio episode, about my camp. We have a couple 100 acres up by Potsdam area in the foothills of the Adirondacks, and it's just heaven on earth. And we used to have a little compound. My grandfather's camp he built in the 70s, and then we kind of as a family outgrew that camp, and so all my uncles have little camps around his, so it's cool. Kind of like a little family compound. Deer hunt there all fall, and it's awesome.
That is awesome. We're talking. That's interesting. You talk about how you have a little compound at camp, because we're kind of at this weird junction right now too, because we don't need to expand. Our cabin it's small, but it's always been enough. But we're kind of at this weird junction where my dad's approaching retirement, thinking about what does he want to do? Does he want to have a place down there that's a all year round house? Do we have little cabins? I've always thought about, like, do they actually build cabins, or they buy any, like, those prefab little cabins, or what?
We built ours. I was a little kid, so I didn't have much to do with it. But we started with one of my uncles. We literally outgrew it. My dad has he's one of 6, so
Wow.
Everybody's got kids. We're a huge family, and we were all kind of doing the bunkhouse thing, and then we literally outgrew it when I was little. So one of my uncles built a camp, all Amish lumber, separate camp. 2 years later, another uncle built one. A year later, my dad built his, and it just kind of spiraled, and now it's like a little village.
That's really cool.
Yep.
Yeah, I've always kind of romanticized about doing something like that. Like, you can go buy those Amish, like, prefab cabins that are really nothing special, but you could get them for $5-6 grand, and then have them hauled up the hill and put in the yard of the cabin, and then just trick it out and do whatever you wanted to the inside, insulation, electric, whatever you want to do. So I've kind of romanticized around that, but we're kind of you don't have kids yet, but like, when you start adding that dynamic in, you try to think about, like, okay, I want to use this more, and if I do something like this, would it help get my wife up there, and with our kid and with our kids, and I don't know. So that's a whole other conversation, but I think that little, like, compound thing is a pretty cool setup that you've got, that everybody kind of has a gathering place.
It definitely allows for people to enjoy the experience. We were loving it when I was a little kid, and we were all in the same room.
Yeah.
But there were 20 of us, and it was probably not the most convenient thing for, like you said, people without kids, or people who really want to be diehard and get up, and get up at 4:30 and do the, non-family aspects of the deer season.
Right.
The compound life lets everybody have their own little thing, for sure. It's nice.
Yeah. It sounds luxurious. What's the name of the compound? You must have, like, a...
We're Scottish family, so not all the camps have names, but the main camp my grandfather built in the 70s is the Wolves Den Lodge. Nice. And my dad's is the Highland Lodge.
Cool.
I don't know if the other ones I don't know if they have their own little names, but
it doesn't matter. You guys have your names. That's all that matters.
That's right. Yep. It's really spiraled. That we bought, my great grandfather bought 11 acres in the middle of nowhere at a tax sale in the 60s. Didn't even know where it was. Had to, like, spend years trying to find the corner posts and find the property. And since then, my grandfather's grown it into, it's probably just shy of 300 acres.
Wow. It's awesome.
It's awesome. Yep. Heaven on earth.
That it is. I think you're very fortunate to have that, and as am I. I had this conversation with, I think it might have been Jeremy from Antler Up down in PA, but, like, most guys our generation are not going out and starting up those little plots of land and buying property. Like, it's just a different time. And I don't know, like, I look back to when my dad started buying property with his brother for him to have for a camp, for everything that we have now, and they made that move at the age I'm at now with 2 little kids at home, and I mean, the financial burden of that, and they didn't have the incomes that we have, and it's very interesting. Like, our priorities are different. I feel like our generation is, compared to what maybe our fathers or grandfathers were thinking and doing with their money and time.
Yeah, it is. It's fortunate. It's a good word for it. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And I know you guys are, I think, close to some state land too, right? Like, our little spot is surrounded by state. So it's fortunate. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. That's, we can kind of get into that a little bit. Like, this, you're active in BHA. You and I both hold the same roles with them as far as being regional coordinators for events and things of that nature. And, my eyes were opened up. It's funny because I guess I'd be interested to hear this from you, but, for me, I always knew about the public land, but I never felt a reason to even utilize it. Like, I didn't even really, I never even went for hikes on it. And a couple things happened where I went out west. That was a big game changer for me, because you see all of that and you use that land. It's all public. Then you come back home and you start looking at the maps and realizing what's there around you. And to your point, like, around our camp, there is hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of acres and it might be thousands of acres around us in a very short driving distance. None of it borders, but you can get to it very easily, and that just expands your opportunity to get out and just go out for an adventure and go for a walk where you didn't have that with just whether it's 40 acres or 100 acres like we have. Like that area runs out when you put 7-8 guys on it to hunt it for 2 days straight. So there was that happened with my adventure out west, and then I got big into running and doing trail running. And some people might find the use of public land through hiking and camping and things like that, but I got into trail running, and pretty much all trails are on public land, whether it be state wildlife management areas or county parks, things of that nature. And you kind of start to become more aware of those things that you use and enjoy. And that's how it kind of led me to getting involved in BHA, because I've become so passionate about those pieces of property and how fortunate we are to have that stuff to be able to recreate on. You want to protect it, you want to take care of it. So I guess what was your driving reason to get into working with backcountry hunters and anglers?
Besides the cool T-shirt that they give you,
Yeah.
no, pretty similar. I grew up when I was young. I didn't know like the state land was as public as it was, because I grew up taking it for granted. It's mine. You know what I mean? I consider that like it was out my. If we saw other people hunting the state land near our camp, we'd be like a little upset, And grew up in the fall always being at camp, but in the winter we rabbit hunted and grouse hunted little state sections closer to my parents' house. And again, just that's where we went, you know what I mean? And it was always the WMAs in the North Country, and state forests in the North Country. And then a couple things. I studied land conservation in college. I studied environmental studies, but a lot of focus on the Adirondack Park, a lot of focus on parks and tourism, and learning about, what kind of spiraled to, but whether it's state land or federal land, the kind of story behind all of that, I just got wrapped up in.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I moved away, I moved to Plattsburgh to finish undergrad, and then Syracuse for grad school. I didn't have my backyard to hunt anymore. You know what I mean? It wasn't out the backyard. So I had to figure it out and find some land. And it was awesome to be like, oh, hey, it's the same thing as at home. Down the road, there's a, 1,200 acre spot where I can go hunt. And I found BHA through, I think, like a lot of people, through Instagram and Meat Eater and seeing public landowner shirts and looking into it and finding out. But the message of it really shifted my perspective on that piece of like getting frustrated if I show up and there's somebody else there. Like now I mean, it's still a little frustrating if you're like working a turkey and somebody goes past you, but I see it now as such a beautiful thing rather than it's mine and it's ours. And I don't want to share it. Now I'm all about really promoting it and loving it. And one of the things I was just talking to Jess about this yesterday or the day before is that I know so many people that don't hunt anymore because they lost their spot or they don't have a family plot. And I'm just like, I'm always just like, go there. It's everywhere. I mean, New York State is just, it's loaded.
Yeah,
you guys were just talking about this the other day on here. It's just loaded with state land to hunt. And that's kind of the way that I came to all of this was exactly that, growing up on it, taking it for granted, and then learning about it and realizing what a treasure it really is, especially for hunters and fishermen and trappers and outdoor people. I don't run, but yeah.
No, I would never have accused you of that. That's why I said hiking, because I figured you might be more of a hiker.
I do. Yeah. I, in grad school, I studied national parks, and I had the opportunity to work a couple summers out West, actually all over the country.
That's cool.
From Virginia to Nebraska, Alaska, all over. And it was just studying visitor use and studying tourism and trail crowding and all of these complex issues surrounding public land. And then it's just all ties together in the end,
What's your take on that? Because we don't necessarily have as many issues with that around here. I feel like things spread out pretty well around here, but you go out, my experience in some of these national parks and some of these national forests, it's just insane, the use. I mean, what's your take on that from what you experienced?
It's complex and interesting. My first summer with the national parks, I got to travel to a variety of parks and a variety of, so like National Park Service manages like national historic parks, right? So I was at like Jamestown, and those are just like tourists. It's not a nature-based scenario. And the trails are paved. You know what I mean? So the impact is just positive. And then, I went to Alaska and there wasn't a ton of people there. It was a little town in Alaska where cruise ships stop in and tourists get off for the day. And they spend money in this little town and they get back on the boat and they leave at the end of the day. And it was just this positive thing.
Mm-hmm.
The second summer I was at one park, I was at Zion National Park.
Yep.
And we studied the Narrows Trail and the Angels Landing Trail, which are super, super popular, overcrowded, and really, really negatively impacted by the crowds. And we were there like on July 4th, and it looked like the line at like Walmart on Black Friday. It was like people waiting in this massive line that twirls down the trail and twirls down the mountain, and you take one step at a time behind the person in front of you all the way up to the spot. You take your picture, you turn around, and you hike back down. And I was like, this is madness, And they took the research that we did for that project, and they actually put in a permit system. And now you have to draw a permit, I think, to
oh, no shit. Okay.
To hike those trails. And it's I think, I'm nowhere near the high peaks, but I see a lot of information coming out about high peaks trails being, the side of the road, they don't have a good parking area, and the side of the road is just full of cars. Even right now, they're telling people not to go
because they know the crowding. Yeah.
And it's you try to hike the trails and they're just muddy messes, and the people who protect them don't have the funding to keep up with the demand. I think it's awesome, but I think that visitor use and handling crowds strategically is definitely an important part of that conservation.
That's interesting. I didn't really think about the high peak stuff because I'm so far from that out here in Western New York.
Right.
But yeah, you're right. The couple times I've been up there, and you hear other people talk about it, there, like you said, there's nowhere to park. And I can remember the one time I was up there, I ran the Ragnar race, I don't know, 3 years ago. I think it was 2017. And it runs from Saratoga to Lake Placid. And,
wow.
And so we ended in Lake Placid on a Saturday morning, fall, beginning at like middle of September, actually like towards the end of September. So peak foliage. And I could not believe the amount of people all the way. We kind of left Lake Placid maybe 10 in the morning, headed back towards Saratoga, driving and just seeing the volume of people up there, which is great. You're out there taking in this just gorgeous park that we have and having all these different trails and everything. But yeah, like what is the impact of that? And a lot of it is just being conscious of the fact you're making an impact, because most people that are out there utilizing that and on those trails, they don't even think about, well, is there an organization that I can belong to that's helping preserve these trails, or can I donate some money to help? I guess it just comes back to helping maintain and keep that stuff going. And I'm saying these things and I'm thinking about the park down the road that I always frequent, and it gets a ton of traffic, but there's an organization that manages those trails and they do a great job with it. But it's like, what can I do to help that? Or maybe it's just $25 helps out to help them, buy a couple pieces of wood to fix a bridge. I don't know.
Exactly. No, it's an interesting thing. And those crowds, like too, like, I'm guilty, more guilty than most people probably. I'm a social media guy. You know what I mean? I love taking pictures and posting them on the internet. It's like it's like I just get a lot of joy from it.
Mm-hmm.
But when you go to those crowded places and they're crowded for a reason. They're gorgeous. You know what I mean? And you're standing at the top of one of the high peaks, or you're standing at the top of that peak in Zion National Park, and it's like one of the most breathtaking, incredible things that you've ever seen. But you're standing there with 150 people, and they're waiting for like the right angle to get a picture of the viewscape without any other people in it. Like, it's a strange thing. You know what I mean? It's a really weird. I had somebody tell me one time they were standing there, and I was guilty. I was taking picture after picture after picture, and she leaned over and she said, "Hey, don't forget to look with your eyes." And I was like, it's just one of those things. I mean, people use that phrase like, loving it to death, but it's true, and it's true too. And you mentioned supporting conservation groups. It's like you say, if that park down the road came and said, "Hey, we're looking for donations, you'd probably be like, I use that place all the time. Why not? Why not buy a membership? Why not send a donation? So
Yeah.
it's interesting.
And you bring up, I love that point you just made about that person telling you to use your eyes, because this goes for all things in life. Like how often do you catch yourself wanting to, grab that picture? Okay, I reached my point, or I shot that, like let's say deer hunting. I shot that deer. Okay, like this past season, I tried to really slow myself down and like, okay, that happened, try to enjoy it. And then you can do your Instagram story, or you can take your picture. But it hit me in 2017 when I went out west, and we were just going nonstop. Like that whole trip was just, you had to get next point, and everything was in a rush. And I took a lot of pictures, and I have a lot of memories from that trip, but a lot of things didn't really sink in. And I found myself like coming back home and looking at the pictures I took, and I'm like, I wish I would have just sat there a few minutes longer and just taken it in without my camera in front of my face, or thinking about where I got to get to next. It's like that was what was a lot different with this past trip we went on this year. There was several times where I just sat there and I was like, what? Like, I don't feel like killing something tonight. Like this sunset is unbelievable, and I don't feel like hiking anymore. I've been going all day. Like I'm just going to sit here and watch this sunset and start my way back to camp. Right. I don't know. I feel like we are in such a go society that sometimes you have to just stop, look around, take a deep breath, and take it all in, because you can't recreate a lot of those moments.
I couldn't agree more. And it's like, sitting there, the sunset, and you're sitting there and you're just big smile on your face. I try to communicate that to people who don't hunt or who are thinking about hunting. That's like the point that I'm like, I could spend the whole season without a firearm or a bow and like a camera and just some time out there in the woods, and be just as happy.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those things. My dad keeps wanting to get like a cell phone booster for the hunting camp, and I'm like, please, just
because that's your way that's the way you're disconnecting, is by going up there. Yeah,
exactly. Yep. And it's like let's have these moments where we're like, oh, the phone doesn't work, or so a lot of times up there I'll just leave it at camp. If I shoot a nice buck, we'll get some pictures, but in the meantime, I just don't even have the phone. It's nice because I'm just as addicted as everybody else.
Yeah, I mean, you can get on your high horse and say that you're not, but pretty much, if you have if you have social media, you're on the crack. I mean, it's
bad.
It is bad, but it's fun too, and there is value to it. So you just got to kind of gauge that stuff out. But
it's nice take those moments and just sit there and take a breath and take it in. And
it is. I love that conversation. Yep. So I appreciate you kind of running us down that road, because that's something that I got to do a better job of talking about too on here. And, hearing those moments and those times when, you sit down and you kind of reflect on stuff and what you were thinking about in those times. It's important.
For sure.
And we've certainly.
Jess caught her. Nope.
She caught a largemouth bass yesterday.
Jess caught her first trout yesterday. We've been trying to get her first trout.
Awesome.
And she did. And she was like, she just wanted to get it back in the water. And I was like taking the time to be like, no, I got to get a picture. This is just yesterday.
Yeah.
Here I am today.
I saw the post. Was that yesterday you posted that?
I posted a picture yesterday of me fishing, but that was from a couple days ago.
Okay.
Stay tuned for the first trout pick.
Oh, teaser. Well,
Yep.
By the time this goes out, it will be the picture will already be there and be, 4 swipes down the feed. But that's been one of the benefits of this slowdown, is that I've been stacking up episode content. So, in 4 weeks here, when baby comes along, I'll have a bunch of stuff to be rolling out that I don't have to be making on my own. So it'll be good.
You guys are getting that close, huh?
We're close.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Middle name's gonna be Corona. Don't tell my mother. My parents, we're surprising everybody with the name, so
good deal.
It's fun to tease that a little bit.
Well, if it's anything as good as Bill Dan, I'm sure we'll all be happy to hear it.
I wonder what is. I know there's so many people that. So my middle name is Robert, so I'm Billy Bob, and my wife, so our family tradition is to go every other generation. You switch the middle names, so then you have a senior, junior. Well, I'm supposed to be the senior. My father was a junior. So my, Bill Dan should have been Billy Bob, but she wouldn't allow that. So she's like, it's bad enough we're going to go with Billy, so we're going to have to we're going to have to tone this back and change the middle name. So we went Daniel, because that's my father-in-law's name is Daniel. And so then everybody started calling him Bill Dan. I'm like, well, that's fantastic. It's like the most redneck thing ever. And
I love it.
It's exactly what she didn't want. She's like, you have to stop calling him that. I'm like, no, like it's who
No
he
way.
is. This
No
kid,
way.
this
Yeah,
kid's
no,
gonna
it's
be,
stuck.
he's gonna be like just growing up, people calling him Bill Dan, and it's great. It's just great.
He's got quite a following these days too.
He does.
He's really starting to take off.
I should. It's, whole nother wormhole, but I feel, I look at like my feed on my personal Instagram page, and I'm like, Jesus, you don't post anything other than pictures of your child, a deer related something, or a nature picture. Like, I feel horrible. Like, I don't post anything about my wife or anything else, but you know what? It's not what the people want. The people want more Bill Dan and
More Bill Dan for
yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
That's what I tell myself.
I love it.
All right, so let's kind of shuffle into this. So what do you do for a living?
So I love that I am a 4-H educator for Cornell Cooperative Extension in Seneca County. It's awesome. I know we talked about it a little bit when we met at the film event in Syracuse for BHA, but it's too much fun. It doesn't often feel like work.
Yeah, so what does that entail? Because growing up, I always heard about 4-H, but I knew nothing about 4-H other than I thought it was like some kind of a farmer program. But that was my perception of it. I just, my dad never had us in Boy Scouts, never had us in anything like 4-H. We were always with him doing stuff out and about, so we just never participated in any of that stuff. So what is 4-H and what are you guys doing throughout the year?
Yeah, so same. I totally thought that it was like, okay, it's all farm related. That's the only context that I ever had growing up for 4-H was just the agriculture side of things. And that it's definitely part of it, especially throughout history. 4-H has been big in agriculture communities. But so I work for Cornell Cooperative Extension, and cooperative extension systems they flow through the land grant university in each state. And Cornell is New York State's land grant university. And they basically take Cornell-based research and flow it out to the public, right? And 4-H is the youth development organization of cooperative extension. And so, I work for Cornell Cooperative Extension, but I work for the 4-H portion of it. And it's basically, it's a youth development organization. It's focused on providing positive spaces for kids to grow and try new things and flourish and find a sense of belonging. And so it has these 4 main pillars, which are agriculture, healthy living, civic engagement, and STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. And so basically, it's education, but it's informal education. So kid spends his or her time in school. And then 4-H stuff is like extra, so it's like we do after school programs. We do 4-H clubs, and 4-H clubs are broad. I mean, we have everything from, we do have agriculture clubs. We have animal science clubs. So kids who raise farm animals or show animals. But we also have, we have a living history club, and they focus on like studying history and making clothing from certain time periods and food from certain time periods. We have, a chess club and a poultry club. It's awesome. And again, within those 4 pillars, there's anything. When I talk to people and they're like, oh, we're, thinking about getting our kid involved with 4-H, it's like, well, if they have any interest of any kind, they can put it into 4-H. I mean, 4-H can be adapted to anything. And as long as it provides that positive space and positive youth development, it can happen. And I'm very thankful and very lucky that my boss and bosses allow me to focus on a lot of natural resource and outdoor education and shooting sports stuff, because that's kind of my background and my passion. And so they let me really focus. I do a ton of outdoor ed and a lot of shooting sports programs, which is great. But a lot of counties have really big horse programs, and other counties have, these extensive after school programs. I know Jefferson County, they have Fort Drum. So they have these like really nice 4-H military family programs. It's a really incredible organization. And I didn't grow up in 4-H. I never knew anything other than the agriculture side. And then 4-H camps are a big thing. So we have summer camps all throughout the state. And kids can go to summer camp. They learn outdoor skills and cooking and it's just everything. It's a really incredible organization that I think not a lot of people know kind of the full breadth of. I certainly didn't. I didn't know about it really even at my job interview. I only knew about certain parts of it. And since then I've just been blown away. I mean, it's awesome.
Yeah, that is awesome. And I think it's great to get you on here and talk a little bit about that because, you know, I can tell how passionate you're getting about it. And education is such a, like, you didn't go to school for education to teach, but you've kind of gotten that itch where, you know, this 4-H organization is a platform for you to make an impact on people's lives, on kids' lives, to help them in any aspect, whether it be just getting ready for the real world, learning skills that will apply throughout their life, you know. And it's great to learn about. I'm super happy to hear you talk about it like that because I'm just like you. I didn't understand its breadth and width of what it can do, what it offers. And you know, so if you're somebody who's out there and has kids that want to get involved, or if you're somebody who wants to get involved to help, is there volunteer opportunities? Is it if you have kids that you want to get involved, like how does that work? What does that look like?
Yeah, every county in New York State has a 4-H office in their local cooperative extension. And every 4-H office is more than happy to have new volunteers. And sometimes our programs will start from a volunteer. We'll have a volunteer come to us and say, hey, I'm really up on gardening. And we can reach out to our 4-Hers and say, hey, kids, you know, we have this new volunteer who's passionate about gardening, and then we'll put together a gardening program or a club. But I would echo what you said. I mean, if you have kids that are urban kids, rural kids, suburban kids, anywhere, your county has 4-H, and that probably has, I mean, I shouldn't even say probably, it has something that will benefit those kids. I am bummed that I didn't get to do it as a kid, and my kids will absolutely be in 4-H.
Yeah. And I sit here and I wonder, like, those summer programs are probably, like, they're super key. And I was fortunate enough when my brother and I were young, my mom stayed home with us all the way through up until we were off and, like, kind of self-sufficient. We could stay home alone after school. Then she went and started going to work full time. But that's probably a big factor why we really I would have to ask my dad and mom about that, but it's probably a big factor why we didn't get involved in those programs was that we had childcare at home. So it wasn't like, what can little Billy and Jimmy go do for this 2 weeks during the summer? So, you know, I'm in the same boat as you. I wish I would have had those opportunities maybe to go do that stuff. I'm not saying I missed out on things as a kid. For God's sakes, don't think that, Mom and Dad. That's not what I'm saying. But, you know, it sounds like an awesome program, great opportunities for kids to get out and do that sort of stuff and interact with other kids and just be kids, go out and get dirty and have fun.
It's cool. It's cool. One of the best parts about it too is like, you know, I think part of what you're saying is like, you know, your dad probably wouldn't have needed to put you in a program to go learn how to shoot a bow, right? Mm-hmm. You know, my dad taught me how to shoot a bow at home when I was a kid because he shot a bow, you know, but the aspect of being in the group and belonging to 4-H and getting involved with the community aspect of it really adds to that. So I encourage people too, like, even though you could teach your kid to do these things at home, that's awesome. Please do. But, you know, just like a sport, just like a team, just like everything else, I encourage people all the time just to jump into 4-H because it's just an awesome community and it opens doors too. I mean, we send kids to the state fair. They like live there for the summer. And I know most people stop into the state fair and take a walk around. These kids live there and they are the hardest working kids I've ever met. They stay there. They do community service projects. They do animal science projects, and they just rock. I mean, it's awesome.
That is
awesome. Really cool.
That's great. And it gives purpose, you know, like, so if you're a kid that isn't into playing sports and travel ball and all this, like having that sense of purpose and that sense of community, like that's vitally important. I always had that, being that I was so active in sports, and my brother was too. In our young ages, we were always playing on the same teams together, but we had that community. We had that team atmosphere where it is so incredibly important in those years to be, not sitting at home by yourself in front of a television, but be out doing constructive things and learning about helping others and volunteer work and hard work. Like it's super important. And that's something, as me being a parent, I want so badly to make sure I instill those same values that I was instilled with as a kid, because I see what it's done to help me in my life. And, so like spinning that around to you, so you being somebody who's working in this program, like what type of stuff are you doing, like hands-on wise with the kids, and what type of like maybe success story to share one, like kids that you see have like really gravitated towards it and made something of themselves or found a passion about a project or something like that?
Absolutely. A couple of my favorite things are, one, and we're scheduled to have it again this year. It's been going on for like 52 years. I'm praying that the current situation doesn't make us postpone it, but currently we're scheduled. But we have this huge event every year called Outdoor Education Field Day, and it's for, and I only work in Seneca County, but it's for 6th grade students all across the county. And we meet at the state park, and we have like 13 workshops, right? And they're all outdoor education focused. So we have like 200, 300 kids from the county show up 9:30 in the morning, beautiful day in spring, jump off the bus, and they get to just go from workshop to workshop to workshop. And these workshops are awesome. I mean, we had the Soil and Water Conservation District come. They had a workshop where they have this huge table, and it's got the whole like local watershed.
Oh, that's awesome.
Laid out, and they pour water and they pour in food coloring, and they talk about pollution and the water system and the cycle. It's awesome. Then they spend 15 minutes there, and then the bell rings and they run to the next workshop. And I had, do you know Ben Williams?
Yeah, I've seen him on social media. I don't know him personally, but
yep, he's active with the I think it's the Northern Finger Lakes branch of QDMA.
Mm-hmm.
We had him come do a workshop last year, so they get to his station, and he did it's like a deer herd game. So the kids learn about white-tailed deer habitat and food and shelter and cover, and they talk and they interact and they play this game where they're deer, and they introduce hunters and they talk about population levels.
Oh, that's cool.
They go boom. So the bell rings, they go to the next station. We had, we had the Finger Lakes Institute there. We had the DEC talking about black bears. We had the New York State Parks talking about ticks. We had Cayuga Nature Center brought live animals. I mean, it's just this incredible thing. And then they go and they have lunch, and they just go workshop to workshop to workshop, 13 stations. And it was like only a few months in. I've only been there a little over a year. And it was only a few months into my job last year that I did this event. And at the end of it, I was just like, wow. It was awesome. Another thing we do, we're just wrapping it up right now and sending kids to the district level, is public presentations. And so that was been definitely one of the most impressive things. We have kids as young as 8 years old, standing in front of a crowd, giving a presentation and doing a really, really good job. Which I mean, talk about life skill development, right? I mean, I never gave a presentation to a crowd when I was 8.
No.
I would have been way better suited for college if I had, right?
100%. Yeah. That was, I remember doing public speaking. I was a disaster. I mean, I couldn't read in front of a group. I get so nervous. And so I took public speaking when I was at Finger Lakes Community College. And that course broke me out of my shell. I was never a shy kid. But then when it would get to talking in front of a group, I would get just freaked out. It's those are serious life skills that we're sitting here talking about 4-H, the group that I thought was I want to be the future dairy farmer of America.
Exactly.
And no, you're these kids are going and having opportunities to learn an incredible life lesson with public speaking, and that's fantastic.
And the public speaking, and then we do events so the university is a huge resource for us. Because we're cooperative extension, right? We're Cornell Cooperative Extension. They're Cornell University. But cooperative extension runs through 2 specific colleges at Cornell, the College of Human Ecology and the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences. And so we get to send kids to Cornell a few times a year for these incredible events, these animal science events where they go and they spend the day learning about chickens and how to raise chickens and I mean, it's just awesome. The stuff that they can do there. They go to the Capitol every year and they meet. These kids go for Capitol days and they go and they meet with their legislators, right? And they're like 15 engaging with their legislators. It's awesome. I can't talk about it enough.
That's great.
And then absolutely, I mean, my thing is shooting sports. So we have 4-H shooting sports is a national program. New York State 4-H shooting sports is our piece of that. And then every county has the option to have a shooting sports program. I think some counties are larger than other counties as far as how active they are. Probably boils down to whether or not they have volunteers in that county who are passionate. I know Wyoming County is out by you.
That's where I live.
They've got a huge program. Their 4-H shooting sports program is incredible. Saratoga County, kind of all the way on the other side of the state, Warren County. Those are some of the larger programs, but it's all throughout the state, and it's got archery, air rifle, air pistol, shotgun, hunting and wildlife, and these are all the disciplines. And that's by far my favorite part of my job. I've so far done instructor training for archery, shotgun, and air rifle, and have put those programs on. And talk about success stories. I mean, you get a group show up to a shooting range in a local sportsman's club with a group of 6 or 7 or 20 kids who have never shot before. It's awesome. And, we had one young lady last year during our shotgun programs. Like, we go through the whole process, start to finish. They do a ton before they ever pull the trigger on a live round, right? And then when they do, it's just incredible to see. We had a young lady last year who, when she finally pulled the trigger on the shotgun for the first time, it was like she couldn't help herself. Right out of her mouth, she was like, "Woo!" She let out this just awesome. She was pumped.
It's a battle cry. She was fired up.
Exactly. And for me, it was just like, okay, this is awesome. And then that week maybe they don't hit any clays, but they have fun. They learn. They're super safe. They're just the most. The 4-H shooting sports program has this extra layer of like responsibility, and the kids just take that on. I mean, they show up for shooting sports with this added layer of they're buttoned up, ready to go, they're focused, they're respectful. It's awesome. And then, 2-3 weeks in, they're breaking clays left and right. They're shooting way better than I do.
Yeah.
It's definitely my favorite part of the job.
And that's the benefit, like getting kids involved at that young age. Like, you have such a respect for the weapon. And I think that's something that's missing from our culture nowadays, is that guns are touted as this like evil thing. But it's like, if you respect a firearm, most likely you're going to be extremely safe with it. And you're going to also, hold people around you accountable when you see them being unsafe with the weapon. And I'd have to imagine that young kids that you're educating like that, they're probably the biggest police officers in the group, because if they see their little friend Johnny, being dangerous with the direction he's pointing the barrel of his gun, they're probably all over him like flies on stink. I mean,
for sure.
Yeah.
No, they show up to those programs. They check their like goofing off at the door, and that's exactly how they are. They do police each other, do work together. And like you said, it provides a really, really important positive experience with firearms and archery equipment that they might not get in other places. I mean, like I say, you and I might have grown up with it. My dad's chief of police. You know what I mean? I was doing firearm safety at age 2. You know what I mean? Sitting on the edge of the bed.
Oh, really?
What to do and what not to do.
The old 9mm, you guys were spinning it around or what?
Just talking about it and having the conversation, and, these kids come in, like I said, they check their goofing off at the door, they're focused, and they do get a positive experience with firearms that I'm proud to give and happy to be a part of, because like you said, it doesn't happen everywhere, and it also provides an awesome, like, we work with the Seneca County Federation for Sportsmen's Clubs and all of the local sportsmen's clubs, and the local clubs provide shotgun ranges, archery ranges, pistol ranges. They provide donations. They support us like crazy, and it's an awesome experience to be able to bring these kids to these places and have these awesome interactions with these with these guys and gals from the sportsmen's clubs. I think it was when you had Brian Gottfried on, you guys were talking about like the changing of the guard at sportsmen's clubs and how you might show up to your local rod and gun club and you don't have this like warm and welcome feeling all the time. And it's like some people see it as a dying thing, these sportsmen's clubs. And when I show up to the sportsmen's club meeting and all they're talking about is youth, they're like, okay, we've got our treasury. How do we support youth? What can we do to get more youth here? It's like youth. It's awesome.
Yeah.
And it's a great part of the 4-H shooting sports program is being able to interact with all these people who have a lifetime of experience and all they want to do is pass it on to kids.
That's awesome. And I think I remember having that conversation. I think I've had it with a couple people on here. With Brian was one, and I think the John from Whitetail 101 was the other. And yeah, I mean, it's fine. It's time, but getting involved and getting that next generation into those sportsmen's clubs. And again, like another family just angle, like I was never in a sportsman's club per se. I worked at a rod and gun club, the local one in Honey Falls. I worked there, but never, and I was a member for a couple of years, but it was never like a part of my life. So, those are very vital and important pieces. And to hear you talk about how they are interacting and working and engaged with 4-H and your organization, like that's great. And, it just in the back of your minds, like that's the importance of these, whether it be conservation clubs or, gun range and sportsmen's clubs, things like that, like going through these times we're in right now with the shutdown and all the financial challenges, with all the unemployment, there's a lot of, I made that post beginning of the week last week about, doing, donating something, whatever you can, whether it's buying a membership, getting involved, donating your time, donating your money, something right now to help those organizations stay relevant and stay, fluid. Like you gotta get involved. We all have a little bit of time now. So it's like kind of take a look at that stuff and figure out where you can make an impact and what you can do to help. And maybe
it's not like they're not, I mean, all they do with that is put it back.
Yeah.
You support those organizations. All they do is put it back into youth programs, put it back into wildlife conservation.
Yeah. And find the one that speaks and works with you, if, regardless of where you live, whether it is in New York State or it's somewhere else, like there's something in your town, in your county, in your city, there's something that you can relate to. There's something you can get involved in, whether it's the trail group that runs the park down the road from me, or if it's, the local sportsman's club, like, get involved. And it doesn't, maybe you don't have the time, but maybe you have the money, or maybe it's vice versa. Like do something, make an impact. I guess that's the whole impact. The whole topic of this entire podcast has been like, making an impact and being conscious in what you're doing and how you can positively make an impact on the stuff around you. So yeah, that's kind of the tone of this conversation. But
it's funny too, on that vein of like impacts that you can have. We had a workshop. We called it Hunting Conservation and Wildlife Workshop, where we offered it as part of our 4-H shooting sports program in the county. And we had 15 kids come for a 4-hour workshop where we talked about wildlife conservation. We talked about like the steps that you have to take to become a hunter. We talked about, we just fielded questions. We talked about barriers to entry for hunting. I mean, these are kids ages 9 to 18. And we talked to them about impacts and about conservation. And I guess maybe I just hadn't given them enough credit ahead of time, but the answers that they had about the stuff that we were just talking about, making an impact and like, oh, you have to do your part. And like, these are kids and they're telling me like, no, you have to give back. You have to, you have to be a part of the system, and you have to, they were talking about, we did this activity where we talked about like, what are the barriers to entry for hunting? Like why might you not be able to hunt? And these kids are like, they're coming up, they're like, oh, well, you might have family and you might not have enough time, or like, you might not have the money to buy the right gear and all these things that like we talk about all the time. Right. And then it was like, okay, now let's talk about, are any of those problems things that we can't focus on and address and get over? And these kids are like, no, you can absolutely overcome that. You can get the right gear and you get the right equipment. And they were super cool. We had Mo Tidball. She was on an episode of the East to West Hunting podcast.
Mm-hmm.
She's our nutrition program coordinator at Seneca County Cooperative Extension, and she runs a page and a program out of Cornell called the Wild Harvest Table.
Okay.
And so she came and taught that workshop with me, and we did venison meatballs with the kids, and they were like just talking about the quality of wild game.
That's awesome.
We had Seneca Falls Ducks Unlimited donated like free memberships to kids and free entry to their wild I think it's waterfowl hunting party that they have every year.
Okay.
At a local club. But like I say, just like talking to those kids about impacts that you can make, conservation efforts. I mean, they're 9. Some of them are 9 years old.
Yeah,
And
those are
like,
those are impactful conversations to have with a 9-year-old. Like,
it was awesome.
I don't know. Like, I don't remember that conversation growing up. I don't remember that.
No.
Like, I know I was with Dad. I was doing the stuff, but I don't remember that being something that we were talking about.
Yep.
I'm going to hit the pause button. My eyeballs are floating. I've been drinking a lot of water today. I'll be right back.
Have at it.
All right. I made it. Whew.
Duty calls.
Oh, man. I was sitting over here. I'm like, this conversation's too good, but I just can't. I guess I got to go. I'm going to be like Miles Davis over here. But,
right.
yeah, and that's why you and I think that's how you and I have just hit it off, too, is that we're both have a lot of the same motivations behind what we're doing. And, I look at what the impact is that you're having on a day-to-day basis with what you're doing with 4-H and the kids that you're interacting with. Like, I think our generation, the passing of the guard is happening, and it's conversations like this. It's people like you that are out there making an impact and trying to do something, forget about hunting and fishing, but it's just making an impact on young people's lives to get them in the right direction, because there is just so many different things that happen. We're both, I think, cut from a very similar cloth, that we were very fortunate to have the support and the background and the family systems behind us growing up to kind of instill that stuff. But, doing our part to do that to the next generation. And that's kind of what I challenge everybody who's listening to this, that, regardless of how old you are, what you're doing, whether you have kids, don't have kids, what are you doing to impact your community? And, whether it's volunteering for the fire department, or, you want to get out and help with the local trail system, or whatever the hell it is, like, think beyond yourself, I guess, is what it comes down to.
No doubt.
So next on the conversation list of things I had was the New York Conservation Council. Is that right?
The New York State Conservation Council?
Yeah. So what is that all about? Because I know you started talking to me about that when we saw each other there in Syracuse, and I've been so you've kind of started working with them a little bit. Just explain that whole organization, that council. What is that all about?
Yeah, so I'm super new to working with the New York State Conservation Council, but they are not new. So they've been around since the 30s, and they are a large-scale conservation organization, and their main focus is, representing hunters, fishermen, trappers of the state. And so they work on legislative issues and kind of outreach and support for members of what we do, hunting, fishing, trapping throughout the state. And the way that they work is, the State Conservation Council kind of is a collective of federations of sportsmen's clubs, and federations are usually at the county level. The center, I work with the Seneca County Sportsmen's Club Federation through 4-H, and they are made up of all the local rod and gun clubs and the local conservation clubs and the local Ducks Unlimited chapter, and so on and so forth. And so you can get an individual membership to the Conservation Council. You can get a group membership to the Conservation Council if you have an organization or a club, but at the end of the day, their biggest thing is they work closely with our state wildlife agency. They work with the DEC on, all the fish and wildlife management boards, on big legislative and legal decisions. If For example, if there's a new piece of state land and they're trying to decide, are we going to put four-wheeling trails here or not? Just weighing in on the side of sportsmen is kind of what they do.
Interesting. So they're at the very top level, and they're almost the voice for us outdoorsmen and women across the entire state, I guess. So they're kind of going up in the legislation, the decision-making side of things. They're not the only ones, but they are a party at the table that has input from us out in the field that are doing what we're doing in our lives, utilizing the outdoors. That's what they do. Fascinating. And I guess I never understood the structure of the different, the rod and gun clubs and I just had no understanding of that structure of things. So
me either. And then I started going, and at our federation meeting, when they come through, they're doing their reports. There's always a report, Conservation Council, and even at the beginning of that, I didn't really know what it was. And I got involved, and I'm involved a little bit. I'm certainly not. I'm not an expert on what they do, but I know they're a passionate group of individuals, and their goal is represent sportsmen, crossbows, motorized use on land, hunter orange, hunting competitions. These are just buzzwords, but these are some of the issues that they would take a position on. And they only are the position of their members. You know what I mean? It's kind of like any other organization. They share the input that their membership provides.
Okay. Interesting. So that's an entire another conversation that we could have about what you can do and your input there. And if I had to guess, when you got involved there, is there a lot of younger guys and girls your age, our age, at these meetings and working with these organizations, or is it a lot of the, our fathers and grandfathers' age?
Exactly. No, there's not a lot of young blood there. And my introduction to the Conservation Council was basically on by having a conversation with, hey, this organization has a great they have a long-standing relationship with the DEC, and it's important to keep that, and it's important to see what's going on there. And just like with BHA, just like with NWTF, see what it's all about, give my input as a sportsman from my state. And so far I've been able to to learn a little bit about them. I want to learn more. I want to work with them more, but so far it's been just a little bit of an introduction to them.
Cool. You are a wealth of knowledge over there, mister. I'll tell you what, I've learned more in this hour-long conversation about different stuff that you could be doing, and I guess it just keeps coming back to it. You get in your little funnel of information that comes at you all day, every day with social media or podcasts or whatever you're listening to, whatever you're watching. Like, you see what you see, but you don't see the other things that are going on that are impacting what you are experiencing. So, man, how cool is that? Like, that motivates me to say, hey, should I be getting involved with my local rod and gun club, just to have a relationship with those people and see if I can, just understand what they're doing. I sit over here and I'm like one of those guys, like, oh yeah, I'll help. Oh yeah, I'll do this. I'll do that. And I just overextend myself all the time. But yeah, exactly. I see that too. Wait till you put a two-legged screaming monster in your life. It's all fine and dandy right now, but then you add a kid to the mix, and like the time that you used to spend on all this stuff is, there's like this look, like, what do you mean you're doing this now? Hun, it's for the benefit of the greater, the world. I have to do this. But but they're
totally. The people that do all of these things with kids, kudos, man, kudos. Because I have a long day, and then I complain about it, and then somebody's like, yeah, I know, I just had the exact same long day you had, and now I'm off to soccer.
Yeah.
And now I'm off to XYZ, know, and it's like, okay, yeah, you're the real superheroes out here.
I'm starting to find the benefits of the child, though. So like during this whole thing with this whole shutdown, I'm home with Billy every day, and my wife's been home for the last week because she's out of work now. And so the weather's been great. So I take Billy and we go to the farm in the afternoon almost every day, and we're just riding the 4-wheeler. We're hiking around, and I used to always be getting text messages. When you coming home? You're late. You said you'd be here 3 hours ago. I don't get those anymore. She's at home and it's quiet, and I've got the kid, and she's like, I don't care if they ever come home.
Yeah.
So I said something to her the other day. I'm like, hey, I got this interesting observation that you're never mad at me now when I come home like 2 hours after I'm supposed to be home. She's like, oh yeah, I don't know what. I'm like, you know exactly what this is all about.
Yeah. I love that. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. So I guess, anybody out there that's listening, take a look into the New York State Conservation Council, and also, so you are managing their Instagram page. Is that correct?
I'm trying.
Yeah. So you're getting involved with that and helping them out on the social media side of it. Nate is. And,
exactly.
But it, kind of opens you up, people out there thinking about it. Like if, check out your local rod and gun club or your local sportsman's club and see what you can do to, whether it be get involved or get a membership or join up so you have a place to go shoot your guns or your bows or whatever. It's definitely good to be part of those organizations.
I think it's awesome, especially because we're such a part of this online. I wrote about it in one of my last columns. This online conservation community, right? It's like I said, I'm not nearly as active as I really need to be on the ground in person. I need to step up in those ways. But I'm active online, and I'm active talking to people, and I'm listening to conversations in podcasts, and I'm reading articles, and I'm writing articles, and the media space for conservation is awesome. You know what I mean? It's thriving. But it's built on this foundation laid by that old guard of rod and gun clubs and people who went to meetings and were there in person. And that's still happening. You know what I mean? It's still happening out there. And they all want to support the next generation. They all want to support wildlife conservation. They want to have youth hunts and fundraisers and all of these things, just like, our beloved BHA and just like our online stuff, which is awesome. It's just as important. It's not one over the other. But I think if you're active in any way, you should go and buy a membership to a local club, even if you go there once a year for the banquet. Mm-hmm. I think it's just as important, and it's a totally different experience. That's awesome.
Yeah. And you just, think about that. Think about the fact that, what's a better use of your time? Can you touch more people? Can you make more of an impact by doing something online where you're hitting potentially hundreds, if not thousands of people with a conversation or with a podcast? Or are you going to go out and, try to get 15 people to show up to a meeting? I don't know, that's just thought provoking. And I think right now we're in this time with this shutdown where we can't be in groups of people, where there's more of this happening. There's more of these video conferences happening and people utilizing technology. Whereas can we get just as much, if not more, done by utilizing the technology we have at hand to get more people to the table, to get more people involved? Because time is just it's just not available anymore. I don't know.
Sure.
There isn't, I don't know. There just isn't time. I don't know. I feel like it's different than it was 15, 20 years ago, 30 years ago when I was born. I just feel like it's different now. There's just so many things pulling at your time. So if we can, if doing something like this and having a podcast conversation along these lines, and if you can get more people engaged with those organizations and maybe get some more Nate Kennedys into participating with these organizations, where you're saying, hey, well, what about we do a live broadcast on Facebook of our March meeting, so that more people can attend and see what's going on and hear and interact? Is that more constructive? Can you do more with that than if you hold a meeting on the second Thursday of every month, and every second Thursday of every month, Johnny can't make it because his kid has softball? I don't know. Is that? It's
a good point.
Yeah.
It's a good point.
It's thought provoking.
That's the thing. Yeah, it is. And I think that there's beauty in having both. You know what I mean? I think that is yes, meet online, have a Zoom meeting. The Conservation Council just had a Zoom meeting. And I think it's awesome that people are able to interact and engage digitally and it's only getting better.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But I think it's still like there's something about going to that second Thursday of the month meeting
For sure.
for sure. And sitting down and having a soda and listening to the guys who have been there, going to that meeting for 40 years, tell stories, you know, it's,
yeah. And you're never,
special.
you're never gonna, I don't think you ever, and I'm a sales guy that makes my living on relationships and face-to-face interaction with people. But if you think about that, if you could do an every other month in-person meeting, could you draw more people in by having that meeting once, every other month, have that meeting virtually, and then this guy's got more time, or maybe he can rewatch the video because you posted it on your page, and they can sit down and rewatch it and be like, you know what, I really love what these people are all about. I'm going to go to the next in-person meeting next month. And then they go and then they're hooked. So
exactly.
I don't know. I didn't have any of this shit written down, but this is like, this is making me, because I'm in this point right now where I'm not working, and I'm like thinking about all these different things about like, okay, Pert Near Outdoors is just, we started out this conversation like we are just a group of guys that's passionate about the outdoors and the lifestyle, but like what type of impact can I be making right now to help educate, to help get people involved? Can I put out content that is valuable? And yeah, like all of this stuff, like thinking outside the box on like, how can you help that local organization? Us at BHA, could we do, more of these like virtual pint nights to get people involved and, do these live like, I don't know, like just, I don't know. I'm just freaking spitballing over here. I've only had 2 cups of coffee today, and I don't even know.
I love it. Everybody is a little rambly these days. I tried to hold back on the coffee this morning because I was like, I don't want to. It's everybody's trapped inside, so it's like all I have to do is talk.
Right.
But I think you're nail on the head with it spawns the idea of things like virtual pint nights, things like can we engage? What if we have the in-person meeting and we feature a live thing so that people can Skype in or Zoom in or whatever?
Mm-hmm.
All it does is open more doors. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, 100%, man. Well, I was prepared to do like a sweet transition because I'm trying to channel my inner Uncle Steve here.
Love it.
But
Love it.
But we got going on a whole nother rant. But you mentioned writing a column, so that was one of the things I wanted to. I guess we can kind of start wrapping up the conversation on that end of things. You've gotten into also writing for a local paper there in Auburn, correct? So how does that all? How'd you end up doing that, and what's that experience been like for you?
So I've always written, even when I was a little kid. I wrote all sorts of stuff when I was young, from poetry to short stories to just everything. I mean, I just always have had a interest in writing, and I took some writing classes in school. And obviously I had to write in grad school. And since college has ended, I have hunted and fished way more. I took a little bit of a, not a hiatus, but I hunted and fished less in college. But since then, I've been, doing my thing as much as possible and writing about it. And my dad's always been encouraging of me trying to find an outlet for that. I've experimented with some blogging and stuff like that, but mostly, I'll keep a journal or I'll keep a note in my phone where I'll sit and type and just kind of tell a hunting story here and there, or a fishing story, or something cool happens, I'll write it down. And then last year, a coworker of mine writes for the Auburn Citizen, which is a newspaper in Auburn. And she had told me that they were looking for contributors. And it was basically this thing like, you have a area of expertise or an area of interest, you tell us what that is, and if it fits with what we're trying to do, we'll let you know. And when I reached out to them and I said, hey, I'm a outdoor person, I write about hunting, fishing, boating, trapping, camping, whatever, here's kind of some samples. I write I'm not a, my articles are kind of different because they're not necessarily just a story, but they're not necessarily just news information. It's different. So I sent that to them, and unfortunately, Wayne Brewer was this wonderful man who I never got the chance to meet. Unfortunately, he wrote this outdoor column for the Auburn newspaper for years, and he's just this huge voice for hunting and fishing and trapping and conservation in the Finger Lakes. He is originally from Seneca County. He worked his way up through the DEC He was top dog at the DEC. He's just got this ridiculously awesome legacy, right? And I never got to meet him, but I work with his daughter, and I knew, long story short, he had passed away. And the people that I reached out to at the newspaper were like, hey, actually, we have this opportunity right now where we lost, Wayne Brewer, and we are looking for some outdoor content. And I was like, I work with Wayne's daughter. I've experienced the awe of his legacy in the Finger Lakes. It's incredible. And I would love the opportunity to even try to, hold some sort of a candle to that. And so they took me on. And for the last year or so, I've been writing my column in the Auburn Citizen and sharing it on my Facebook. And I just write about hunting and fishing and whatever's, like I said at the beginning, I'm a super generalist. So, right now I'm trout fishing and perch fishing, and I'm looking forward to turkeys. And then I'm going to be picking leeks, and then I'm going to be fishing walleyes, and then I'm going to be fishing bass, and I go with the calendar.
Yeah.
So it's my lifestyle, and hunting and fishing is meant for a column, because it's like, what's hot this month? You know what I mean? And it's awesome. They let me do it, my way. I'm not an awesome journalist. I just write these little story journal columns, and they've been awesome publishing them for a year now. It's great. It comes out the last Sunday of every month.
Is that in print and online? Oh, you were lagging a little bit.
I think I lost you there for a second.
I got you back. Is that in print and online, or?
Yep, it's in print. It comes out in their newspaper in the sports section, and it comes out on the Auburn Citizen app and sometimes on their social media channels. I always make sure to share it. You can find me if you're looking for it, you can find me on Facebook, Nate Kennedy. But yeah, it's fun. It's awesome because it's something that I've always done anyway, and now I get to do it and put it out for people. And I don't really like the limelight. Every time I put one out, I'm like, oh God, this is terrible. This is terrible. And I get great feedback. People seem to really be loving it. And that makes me happy to be able to share that with them. So
yeah,
it's really cool.
I love your message, Nate. And I'm not just saying that because you're bigger than me and I'm scared of you, but no, but I love what you're all about. And I think I've never heard it said like that you're being a generalist, but I think there's a lot more of you and me, and I would consider myself a generalist too, because I'm just going with the wind. Like, I'm very passionate about deer hunting now, but when it's time to fish for bass, I want to fish for bass, to your point, all that stuff. Most people are not like in the top echelon, record book killing bucks, record book killing whatever. I think that turns people off, is my opinion. It turns me off when somebody comes to me and they just want to flaunt what they've done. It's like, it's not what I'm all about. That's not what we're all about. Like, that's so, like, you are hitting it on the head, and I love what you're about there, and keep being who you are and keep doing what you're doing, because people need to realize that it doesn't matter what that deer scores. It doesn't matter whether your fish was a world record fish or not. Like, it doesn't freaking matter. Like, did you go out there and did you have fun? Did you experience what you wanted to experience? Then that's all that matters. And I think the more people hear that message, the more people can understand why we like to go out and do what we're doing. I think people that either are intimidated to get into the outdoors because of, it's a lot of times it's because of those, I feel like if I don't shoot some huge buck, then people are going to think I'm a horrible hunter. It's like, I love it. You shot your buck in the Adirondacks, and like, you were like beyond ecstatic about that buck you shot.
Oh yeah.
It was a little buck.
Yeah.
The buck I shot in PA this year, tiny little year and a half old buck. I was fired up and stoked. It's like, and in this world we're in, you get nervous about sharing that stuff because people are going to be like, well, you should have, I had guys, I posted the picture on Instagram of my buck in PA, and I had guys, a couple different people, but one guy in particular from Pennsylvania, he's like, and this is exactly why we can't have big bucks. I'm like, okay, buddy. It's like, okay.
Sorry, I had one of the most memorable days ever.
Yeah. Like, I was fired up, not an ounce of my body was not excited about that. legal buck that I saw coming out of the deer drive. Yes, if you want to shoot 150, 160 inch bucks, I'm probably not your guy in that moment. Like I have my times where I'm worried about shooting something of a certain caliber where you can control it. But if you're going to go to public land that's heavily hunted and you want to shoot a legal buck, like go shoot a legal buck. And
get the experience.
Yeah.
Right?
So,
Totally.
and that guy has the right to have his opinion too. But, I think Jesse Coots says it the best. It's like, don't get mad at, Jesse's like, don't get mad at me because all I want to do is shoot big bucks. And then all you're going to do is complain about there not being any big bucks if you're shooting little bucks. And it's like, yeah, I agree with that. But I'm not upset I shot that buck. And I'm not complaining that I didn't shoot the bigger ones that got shot on that trip.
Right.
So I don't care, So hunt your hunt, do what you want to do, have fun in the outdoors, be a generalist like Nate Kennedy, and everything's going to be all right.
That's right.
Is that the name of your column is outdoor generalist? Outdoor generalist?
I wish. No, it's
I almost
just
called you a genitalist.
It's just called Outdoors, I think.
Just called
It's
Outdoors.
usually as my name. It's like my name and then a colon and then the title.
Outdoors.
But yeah, it's fun and I couldn't agree more. I mean, I'm waiting for the day when I get my big buck. And I this year and last year have passed some spike horns and some small bucks. But I've waited, I'm 25, 10 years.
You're 25?
Yeah.
Holy shit. I figured you were 30 all day. God damn, you're young.
25.
You're just a boy.
I know. But I waited my whole life for that deer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it was the greatest day of my life, one of them.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know. I could have let him go and maybe seen him next year. And maybe someday I'll be at that point where I'm like, that's my goal. But for now, it's like, I'm just trying to have fun, have experiences, be outside,
No doubt, man. And you will always come home with a smile on your face if you approach it with that attitude. That's what it's all about, man. So you got anything else you want to dive into or you want to talk about?
I'm just here I just want more Bill Dan content.
Okay.
I think that's what the people want. Give the people what they want.
Be
more
careful.
Bill Dan.
Be careful what you ask for, man. Because I have a
What about
lot
those
of time with Bill Dan in my hands right now. So,
was he with you when you saw those bears?
no, that was a solo dad mission. That would have been something. Because I don't know. That was wild. Like, so I was just walking across, and so every time that piece of property it's a piece of Nature Conservancy property, and I've been part of their hunting program for a couple of years now, and I've just fallen in love with this piece anyway. And this every time I've been up there, no joke, I've come across bear sign, whether it be tracks, scat. I like almost every time I go up there. And especially during the fall, I'm seeing fresh sign. Like this year, I was up there for gun. There's bear tracks on the main logging road every time. And so I was very surprised that this was the time that I saw the bears because it was pretty dry. It was quiet. And I was just cruising the woods looking for sheds. And then I just come around this little kind of the way that the hill, it's on just one face of the hill, but there's these little like kind of ridges that they run out and then they cut back and then they run out and they cut back. Not like super far cutbacks, but like little drainages that come down, but it's all part of one hill. East, it's a west facing slope. And so I was working my way up the north side of this west facing slope. And then I was going to work my way south and then back down to kind of try to canvas the whole area. So I kind of like came up around the top and started working my way down. And as soon as I came over the top, I just hear, it wasn't even loud. It was very interesting because I've never jumped bears like that. I've seen bears in the woods, but they've always been, bears are just they're very quiet. Like a lot of times you get surprised by them unless they're running and spooked from something. And, but I heard them take off and I heard a few branches break. They were probably like 120-ish yards away. They were a little over 100. And, I just see like this like blur and it's dark. And, with deer, like, deer can look dark depending on the light. And they weren't spreading apart. It was like all bunched up. And as they got further away, like usually deer will run a little ways and then they'll stop and look back and say, okay, what was that startled us? And then they'll take off and run again. Where these things, they were just gone. And I wish I did have my binoculars on me, but it just all happened so fast I didn't even pull them up. But I could clearly see there was one big bear, but then the other three were all like in line, like running together and kind of covering each other up. But like there was clearly 4 bodies, and there was clearly one that was significantly bigger than the other. So I'm guessing it was a sow with 3 cubs, and right in an area where I always am seeing the bear sign. So they're living right in there somewhere, and I don't know where they den
Locals.
up, but yeah.
Townie bears.
That's
awesome. That's awesome. When I was watching your Instagram story, I had no idea that that's where it was going. And you're like telling the story, like talking it through, and I was like, and then you said like, and then I saw 4 bears. I was like, oh, I had no idea that that's where this is going. That's awesome. That's great.
It wasn't. No, I just almost said something inappropriate. I almost went with an off-color sexual preference joke, but I'll just leave that there. But yeah, that was pretty wild. So I'll be honest, I was working my way out of there, and I was like, I really want to go over there in that thick, dark set of pines, but I'm like, I'm just gonna stay over here. And
just gonna back out slowly.
Get out. I didn't have a knife. I didn't have, not that I'm gonna knife a bear, but I had nothing for self-protection. So I'm like, I'm just gonna work my way out of here. But
that's awesome.
Yeah, man.
There's nothing better.
Nope. If you guys had a lot of interaction with bears up there, up at your camp?
It's funny. We have them, and we've taken them. I haven't, but bears have been taken out of my camp, and we see them. I've seen a couple, but the sign is the thing. It's like one of those cool things. It's like the bobcats. You know what I mean? It's like you don't see them all the time, but they're there all the time. You know, we have this old one of the chunks of the property that we bought years ago has this like old broke down camp on it, and that camp, there's pictures of it somewhere on my Instagram. It's just shredded. I mean, the walls of the camp are just shredded, and every year you go and there's this new section that's like torn off the walls, and there's these new bear scratchings.
No shit.
It's eerie, but it's awesome. It's very cool.
That is cool. I gotta tell you this one last story, and then we're gonna go. The first interaction we ever had with bears at our camp. So they've kind of, coming down in the Finger Lakes, they've kind of, they've reintroduced into the area. And now it's a commonplace. I can remember growing up, we weren't able to hunt bears. And the first time that we ever saw a bear at our camp was, I don't even know how many years ago it was. My dad would know better because, he was hunting, I wasn't. But it was opening day of gun season. So the night before, everybody's up at camp. The next morning, everybody gets up, makes a big breakfast, bacon and eggs. And my dad was when he got to the top of the mountain, he hiked up there because it was before we had 4-wheelers, hiked up to the top of the mountain, and he ditched his undershirt, his white T-shirt, because he was sweating terrible. So he ditched his cotton white T-shirt, left it on the side of a logging road. He ended up seeing the bear out of his tree stand, which was probably 300-400 yards from where he left his T-shirt. So the bear had come right down the logging road that my dad was, and this is how I remember the story. The bear comes down the logging road, and it stops. And I think it ended up smelling my dad, or it seen him, but it was close. It was like inside 20 yards. My dad saw it. Thing took off running and ran over past my dad's buddy, who was hunting maybe another 300-400, 500 yards away, a fairly good distance away from my dad. So ran past my dad's buddy, Joel. And when my dad left to go down back to camp at night, he comes back and his T-shirt is like not where he left it. And the armpit holes were torn out of the T-shirt. So the T-shirt probably smelled like bacon from being him wearing it while he was cooking in the morning for all the guys at camp. And then it was all torn up, and it was out of the armpits where the bear had gone at the T-shirt. It was like bizarre. And I could have the story totally wrong, but that's not the first time that we've had. So like we had my brother, he shot a buck the night before opening day, a gun. And I should have him tell the actual story. It's not a long story, but it's a good one. But he shot a deer. It died in the top of the yard of the cabin. But he hit it back a little bit, so he let it lay overnight. It was a super cold night before opening day. And we left, like when we get done eating our stew at night, we put all of our stuff and everything. If it's cold out, we put it out on the racks outside the cabin so it can stay cold, so we save refrigerator space. And we come in the morning, my brother gets up to go up the hill to retrieve his deer, and he goes up there and he finds one of the Tupperware containers that had our stew in it, and it's completely licked clean. The lid is peeled off of it, and it's up in the yard of the cabin. And so that bear came through the yard of the cabin, ate our leftover stew that was on like the storage shelf, and then it just kept moving. And it actually went to our neighbor's camp and got into some of their stuff, but it never ever, it walked within 50 yards of, because we followed the tracks, walked within 50 yards of that dead deer, never even
Really?
investigated it. Yeah, because there was
Must
a little
have
bit of
been
snow on the
some
ground.
stew.
Yeah, must have been. I mean, he was like, "Holy shit, this stew is fantastic," and he just kept heading north. You know, he just didn't
That's
smell it.
crazy.
I guess, I don't know.
Oh man, that's classic. We've
Yeah.
definitely had some buckets and seats and stuff go missing, and then you find them the next year and they're just shredded.
Yeah,
It's like, okay, all right.
yeah. Yogi was interested in what was going on there. Somebody,
Yeah.
maybe you didn't have Dan Zaylor up there farting on your.
I did not.
On your-
Not with that fro.
No. Oh, we're gonna have some fun with that. So I got that poll. I got a couple other polls I've done lately. I think we're gonna dissect that in a couple of weeks when we do our live podcast. So
Classic.
yep, unbelievable.
Oh, man.
All right, let's wrap this thing up. You and I can sit here and talk for hours because we have nothing else to do. But I should
Yeah, brother.
go make sure that the house isn't tore apart upstairs and that I'm still in the good boy list.
You turn around and get after them Cheez-Its.
I didn't finish telling you. I ate like 3/4 of that box the other night. I had a couple beers and I sat there and I was just like freaking mowing down. It's bad. Cheez-Its are.
Gotta love it.
Yep.
Welcome
All right, pal.
to quarantine, man.
Yep. Quarantine living.
All right, brother.
Thanks for your time, Nate
Of
Kennedy.
course.
Check Nate out on like you said, Facebook and Instagram. I think your Instagram handle is Nate Kennedy
60.
60. Same. It's his email. If you want to send him an email, NateKennedy60
There you go.
@gmail.com. But
That's me.
Nate is one of the OG Pert Near Pro staffers. We appreciate your continued support and playing along with us here. And stay healthy. Wash your hands.
You too, buddy.
All right. Thanks, pal. See ya.
We'll talk to you soon.
Yep. Bye.